Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Juneteenth. My name is Galen Hardy, and I'm the Environment and Climate Justice Chairperson for the Ann Arbor branch NAACP. And today, my topic will be environmental racism. What is environmental racism? Environmental racism refers to how minority group neighborhoods populated primarily by people of color and members of low socioeconomic backgrounds are burdened with disproportionate numbers of hazards, including toxic waste facilities, garbage dumps, and other sources of environmental pollution and foul odors that lower the quality of life. NIMBYism. NIMBYism plays a part in environmental racism. See, when they want to place these facilities, white suburban communities rise up and they say, no, 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 we don't want these communities, these type of facilities in our communities, because we want healthy, clean, pollution-free neighborhoods, just like Black folks However, they have political power and they're richer. So when it comes down to where they're going to place these sites, it often is placed in low income, impoverished neighborhoods because they represent the pathways to least resistance. In these communities, there's a thought that, they can be exploited. The residents there don't have any political power. There's a belief that they're uninvolved in government and they'll choose jobs over healthy outcomes. Because many times when these heavy polluters come to our communities, they say, well, we're going to bring so many jobs. And we in Michigan have learned, from the Marathon Petroleum Facility and their tax rebates with the promise of jobs that oftentimes those things never ever occur. And also the regulations, the federal regulations aren't responsive to the plight of our communities, especially when it deals with pollutants. It's basically profits over people. And this normally leads to poor health outcomes for Blacks and people of colors. Nationally, poor communities have a 35% higher burden from particulate matter emissions. Also, people of color represent 56% of the population that live in neighborhoods with toxic release inventory facilities, and Blacks are 75% more likely to live in baseline communities than the average American, and approximately 13.4%, which comes out to about 1.3 million African American children are suffering from asthma, and compared with only 7.3% of white children. So that's definitely a problem. We're only 15% of the population. In the state of Michigan, there are several EJ hotspots in the state. We see Detroit. We see Detroit here. We got Flint, Saginaw, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Lansing, and of course, Detroit. And some of the characteristics of these places, of those cities, rather, there's large concentrations of minority residents. A lot of those areas have high levels of poverty and unemployment, low educational attainment, where there's high percentages of 25, 24-year-olds without high school educations. There's other socioeconomic disadvantages as well. And also a high EJ score means that a community has both a high risk of exposure to environmental hazards and high vulnerability due to socioeconomic factors. The University of Michigan School of Public Health estimates that air pollution kills more than 650 Detroiters a year. But we never hear that because we always hear about homicide and other things, but we don't hear, the things that are causing early deaths, from pollution. Also, EJ cities share the greatest concentration of environmental burdens. There's high estimated cancer risk, high levels of air pollution, including particulate matter, high traffic proximity and volume, because we know in a lot of the major cities in the state of Michigan, we have highways that are, right by it. As a Detroit resident, also, we got 75, we have Interstate 94, we have the Lodge Freeway, we have the Davidson Freeway, and all of those freeways, cross paths with our neighborhoods. And also in these communities, there's high levels of hazardous waste facilities and high levels of COVID risk due to other factors, other unhealthy outcomes, rather. So with that being said, just touching on it right now, but we have a lot of work to do here in the state of Michigan, and we're going to keep up the good fight. I'm Galen Hardy, and this is just a brief talk on environmental racism. And happy Juneteenth. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mashad Evans, and I serve as the senior pastor of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm excited to spend these next few minutes with you. I want to take this opportunity to thank the NAACP for this opportunity to share, and for the Ann Arbor NAACP chapter president, William Hampton, who also happens to be a member of Bethel AME Church. I've been asked to share for the next few minutes in regards to the history of the African American church, more particularly the history of Bethel AME Church and the collaboration with the NAACP. Bethel was founded in 1857, which makes it one of the oldest African American congregations in Washtenaw County. Our founding pastor was actually born enslaved in 1798 in Maryland. From Maryland, he was moved to New York. And in New York, when he was legally able to gain his freedom, his quote unquote owner chose not to grant it to him. And so he sued for his freedom. And after winning that suit, he moved to Michigan. And that in and of itself is extraordinary. The fact that this individual had the wherewithal and the desire and the impetus to sue for his own freedom. And this was years before the Emancipation Proclamation. In Maryland, he started work as a farmer and as a tradesman, and continued that through New York and here in Michigan. He purchased land in what is now Pittsfield Township. And several years later, he moved into the city of Ann Arbor and founded what became Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. This was in 1857, 8 years before the Emancipation Proclamation, before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And he was very much a part of the social action and the social justice movements in Michigan at the time. He was part of a freedmen's society, which worked to advocate for free African American men and women in Michigan, and served as the president of that organization for several years. There is no conversation about history in the United States of America, especially African American history, that does not involve the Black church, for many reasons, one of which that the Black church has been a place and space of gathering, of meeting, since people of color have come to the United States or were brought to the United States as enslaved people. From the brush harbors that were prevalent in many enslaved communities to the churches we see now, there has been this sort of continuous legacy of involvement. Many members of leadership within the African American community, through abolition to the civil rights movement, and even more recently, the Black Lives Matter movement, are also members of clergy. The spaces in which individuals gathered were places of faith, places of hope. One of the reasons was because there were not many other places and spaces open to people of color. The majority of private HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, trace their foundings back to Black churches. And within the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the church where I am privileged to hold my ordination and serve as a pastor, there has been a tremendous legacy of education and involvement. And everywhere there have been advancements, everywhere there have been points of victory and success, the Black church has been right there. When you look more specifically at Bethel AME Church here in Ann Arbor, I am so privileged to have members of the NAACP who are members of our congregation. But not only that, there are members who have been so very involved in the advancements of people of color in this community and in this region. One of the things that I am often so very impressed with is how the members of our congregation are so firmly committed to social justice that it's not something I necessarily have to preach and teach because it is already part of our DNA. There are Bethel members who recall when the University of Michigan, many of their dormitories were not integrated. So families who were members of Bethel had to open up their homes for students who were coming here to study and to learn, and to even individuals who were coming to teach. When you consider gentrification and the way in which the neighborhoods of Ann Arbor have changed, Bethel, the original building, now stands in a space that is tremendously diverse. But at one point in time, it was the heart of the African American community for various reasons. And so Bethel is so very tied to not only this community, but the experiences of people of color. And as we celebrate Juneteenth and freedom in so many ways, we look not only back to the past and where we have been blessed, where we have been strengthened, where we have been encouraged by experiences that have already taken place, but we look forward with excitement and optimism, and also a renewed commitment, because there is still more work for us to do. There's such a need for places and spaces and people who are committed to social justice to continue to speak up and to speak out. In the last 2 years alone, we have seen a racial reckoning of sorts in these United States of America. When it comes to the Ann Arbor community, there's still a place of relevance for faith communities and for communities of color to speak up and to speak out and to advocate for social justice and change. So it's been a pleasure just sharing these few minutes with you to talk about the importance, the significance, the relevance of the Black church, and how we continue to work to make society better.
Hello everyone, my name is Tiana Kelly, and I am a graduate student at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, getting my Master's of Social Work degree. Personally, I would like to thank the NAACP Ann Arbor branch for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today. I serve as the MSW intern at the University of Michigan Rackham Graduate School Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. As the MSW intern, I am intentional about my engagements with anti-racist pedagogy, learning about equitable and affirming practices, and holding myself and those around me accountable to the social work code of ethics. I choose to participate actively and contribute to diversity, equity, and inclusion in so many ways that indicate my personal and professional commitment to creating a more just society. As part of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic 5-Year Plan, one of those objectives is to recruit, retain, and support academic, professional, and personal development. This objective is made to enhance an equitable and inclusive community. thus ensuring that all students and staff feel a deep sense of belonging. One of those items is to commemorate Juneteenth through Rackham-sponsored events. I would like to give thanks to the Strategic Action Leadership Team, SALT, which is a subcommittee within Rackham, who made it possible to add Juneteenth to the 5-year DEI plan. In my role at Rackham Graduate School DEI office, I built upon the foundation SALT created, noticed the gaps within the university community, and envisioned a week-long Juneteenth celebration. Though there have been celebrations of Juneteenth on our campus sponsored by various units, with the establishment of this annual symposium, which explored the theme of celebrating Black joy, hope, and healing, this is the first time that the University of Michigan has celebrated Juneteenth together as a whole campus. Our campus-wide celebration is also an example of publicly engaged scholarship, as it is a result of a partnership between the University of Michigan and the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP, which has hosted the longest running celebration of Juneteenth in the state of Michigan. I can't express what joy and pleasure it has been to partner with the NAACP Ann Arbor branch to celebrate Juneteenth this year. Words from a wise sage once said, "Celebration is better than competition."
Protectors of Equality's mission is to see that we have a government that treats everybody with equality and acceptance. We are honored this year to join in commemorating the end of slavery and the work of the NAACP to achieve racial justice and equality. The events of the past year illustrate just how far we have yet to go. Juneteenth is also a call to action for all of us to come together and honor and continue the work of those before us who fought for Black lives, Black voices, and Black votes. I hope that now we go through a major awakening regarding systemic racism and finally take real steps towards a more inclusive and equitable society. May we all be together in fellowship and peace next year when we celebrate Juneteenth 2022.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Meadows on behalf of the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. And we are thrilled to be able to celebrate our Juneteenth celebration with the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP. And I have to say, Mr. William Hampton, you've been a leader in this community and have provided this Juneteenth celebration, which we all look forward to. I'm sure, I hope everybody knows that City Council passed that the Juneteenth will be a holiday. And it's nice to know that our city governance recognizes the importance of this day. Typically, it's been one that's been celebrated within the African American community solely, and the NAACP here has done that. They've carried that torch for years, and now it can be a citywide recognized holiday. Other cities across the nation are doing the same. As many people know, June 19th, 1865 was the date when enslaved African Americans were told that they were in fact free in Galveston, Texas. This was actually 2 months after General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant. And over 2 years that President Lincoln had passed the proclamation, emancipation. And so their justice, they were legally entitled to their freedom back when Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation. But their justice was delayed. It was denied for many, many years. We see the same theme at times repeating itself. We're looking towards, the outcomes of Breonna Taylor, and we've been watching George Floyd, and hoping that the laws that are on the books will one day show in our favor, that they will have some equality and the justice that that we're looking for. But I should say in 1865 in Ann Arbor, we had free Black men who attended a convention, the second of two, whose purpose was to continue the battle to gain the right to vote, okay, and also for equal rights, because they knew that their brothers and sisters who were newly freed would be arriving and needed employment. Look, there was no more free labor. They needed employment and payment. They needed education for their children so that they could sustain themselves from generation to generation. And a couple of the names of men who lived here during that time was Reverend J.W. Brooks of Bethel AME Church. There was Nelson Akro of Saline. And there was also a gentleman a businessman by the name of John Freeman here in Ann Arbor. So they were three of the men who attended this convention as a way of preparing a place for our brothers and sisters to have a community and to live with equal rights. So the Juneteenth celebration, I tell you, I kind of look at it and I think of the West African symbol of the Sankofa bird. It's the symbol of a bird walking forward, right? But it has an egg in its mouth and it's looking back. And it reminds us that as we move forward, we need to keep in mind our history, all right? And to carry it with us. You know, these are treasures. You can't take the good and not the bad. We carry it all with us. And the Sankofa bird reminds us to know our history. The African American Cultural and Historical Museum, in the attempt to share the history of our community, has done a few programs, one of which is the Underground Railroad tours, which we are starting this year, this summer. We'll have 2 bus tours, one Saturday, July 24th from 11 until 2, and the next one will be Sunday, September 19th from 2 to 5. You can visit our website at www.aachm.org, and you will soon have a link to reserve your spot on those bus tours. There will also be a contact information for Deborah Meadows or the museum. If you wanted a private tour, we're doing mini walking tours. And until the COVID restrictions are lifted, we are doing them masked for a limited time together. But homeowners are opening up their homes that we can walk by their homes and tell the history associated with that here in Ann Arbor. We've also have the Living Oral History interviews in collaboration with the Ann Arbor District Library. And we've been able to do videotaped interviews of local senior African Americans who are opening themselves up in a way that is most vulnerable, but to share their experiences of growing up here in Washtenaw, what they've dealt with over the years and in the way of employment, raising families, and their experiences in the African American community. And I would, we also have programming where we can have called Focus on the Arts. And we're looking for artists across various genres to showcase your work. This is a platform that we usually have once or twice a year. And so spoken word is one we're looking for. So anybody out there who would like to showcase your poetry with us, we'd love to provide the space for you to do that, and feel free to contact us. We have a Facebook page as well under AACHM, and that has a lot of history posted on it. One of which is on our website. It has to do with the Student Advocacy Center of Michigan. And this is a page that allows students to tell their experiences being forced into the virtual learning arena, the struggles they've had to deal with. And we also have a contribution by Dr. Rashid Faisal, who provided an extensive history on George Jewett. Many of you know Coleman Jewett. His grandfather, George Jewett, was the first African-American varsity football player at U of M. But he was not only made his letters on the field, he was a scholar, a valedictorian in medical school, spoke many languages. You know, Ann Arbor has a rich history, and these are just a few that are featured on our page, and we encourage you to come and take a view at aachm.org. And so we thank you, Mr. Hampton, and we thank the NAACP for giving us this opportunity to share a little bit about the museum with our community. And we wish everyone a happy Juneteenth celebration.
I'm Norma McQuiston, a longtime member of the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the members who helped to recharter the branch in 1983. The Ann Arbor Juneteenth celebration began in 1994 at the urging of Reverend Herbert Lau. Reverend Lau was then the pastor of Church of the Good Shepherd, and he later formed Amistad Church. We decided that we would have the celebration at Wheeler Park. And I'm trying to remember if it was actually called Wheeler Park then, or if it was named later after the first African-American mayor of Ann Arbor. I really think at that point it was called Summit Park. We chose to have it there because that was the area of the city where most African-Americans had been living earlier, or were told that's what they needed to live. We began with a few of us sitting at tables in the park with information about Juneteenth and information about African and African-American history, and generally sharing and getting to know members of the community. I eagerly volunteered to coordinate this event. I am a little embarrassed to say that I did not know about Juneteenth until then, when the branch began to do it in 1994. Over the years, I have coordinated the celebration for 25 years. I have either volunteered and cajoled and told people that I would help them if they coordinated it. 2019 was my last year of coordinating the Juneteenth celebration in Ann Arbor after 25 years. I had no idea, or perhaps I didn't even think that it would go on for that long. It has now been 27 years. The last couple of years, COVID has dramatically changed how we celebrate. However, I think it is important to note that it was not canceled. When we began this celebration, we had no idea. We recruited and we asked people to come, and they did. So we have gone from actually flipping hamburgers ourselves as members of the branch for people who came to join us at the park, to now having over 4 or 5 food vendors. We have gone from having maybe 3 or 4 people sitting around sharing information to now more than 20 vendors, local people who have their own businesses, local food vendors, people who were sharing information about services in the community, those that would be of note or especially useful for African Americans in the city. As I think about it, Ann Arbor was the second city in the state of Michigan to have a Juneteenth celebration. And I'm sure many of you think that Detroit was probably the first. It was not. As I also think back, we didn't know at the time that the park was going to be named after Mayor Wheeler, but we were really, really thrilled that it was, and that's where Juneteenth was going to be taking place. I am eagerly looking forward to celebrating Juneteenth in 2022, when I know that there will be a major, major crowd. Over the years, we have had many people to volunteer. We have been able to recruit really talented local people to entertain during the event. So as we move on, I look forward to perhaps seeing you next year. Thank you.
My name is Jerome Vassar, and I am chapter president, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Theta Zeta Lambda chapter here in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. I have the distinct honor and privilege of being able to discuss the relationship between Juneteenth and Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Juneteenth, or June 19th, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, or Emancipation Day by many, is a holiday, as we all know, celebrating the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the United States of America. Alpha Phi Alpha is the first intercollegiate African-American fraternity founded on December 4th, 1906 at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. Obviously, many of the students at that time were the descendants and children of slaves in America, slaves that were freed during the Juneteenth celebrations. There's a special unique relationship again with Alpha Phi Alpha and the celebrating of the freeing of enslaved people. The goals of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity were ultimately to advance the Black race and further build upon the ability of African Americans to pursue life, liberty, and justice that comes with the freeing of enslaved people as promised in the Constitution of the United States of America. During the American Civil War, emancipation came at different times to various places in the United States. Celebrations of emancipation often called Jubilee Day by many, also occurred on April 6th, July 4th, August 1st, September 22nd, November 1st, and on, as the information was attained by the slaves in those various areas. President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation had officially outlawed slavery in Texas and the other states in rebellion against the Union almost 2.5 years earlier. Enforcement of the proclamation generally relied on the advance of Union troops. Texas, as the most remote of the slave states, had a low presence of Union troops during this era. Thus, enforcement of the proclamation had been slow and inconsistent before this announcement. Although Juneteenth generally celebrates the end of slavery in the United States, a little known fact is that slavery had actually continued to the end of 1865 in border states of the Union, Delaware and Kentucky being those states, until the ratification of the 13th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States that abolished chattel slavery. Formerly enslaved people, again in Texas, celebrated after the announcement. The following year, freedmen in Texas organized the first of what became the annual celebration of Juneteenth, Jubilee Day, Emancipation Day. These celebrations were amazing. They were filled with a lot of thankfulness and excitement. Again, there's a rich history and legacy regarding Alpha Phi Alpha and the celebrations of Juneteenth. 41 years after the Emancipation Proclamation at the start of the 20th century, African-American students at various American universities were often excluded from formal fraternal organizations enjoyed by predominantly white students at these universities. Alpha Phi Alpha was the first intercollegiate fraternity that sought to establish a safe haven for these African-American students who were in many instances the immediate descendants of these enslaved people. The original founding members of Alpha Phi Alpha, prominently referred to as the Jewels, brothers Henry Arthur Callis, Charles Henry Chapman, Eugene Kinkle Jones, George Biddle Kelly, Nathaniel Allison Murray, Robert Harold Olger, and Burton Woodson Tandy, went on to establish what we all consider the greatest fraternity on planet Earth. The goals of the fraternity were to promote a more perfect union among college men, to aid in a sense and insist upon the personal progress of its members and community, to further brotherly love and a fraternal spirit within the organization, to destroy all prejudices and to preserve the sanctity of the home, the personification of virtue and chastity of women. For more than 100 years, Alpha Phi Alpha has worked to advance the spirit of Juneteenth and the freeing of African Americans in this country. Its members have consistently had a voice and influence on politics and social and current events and affairs in this country. Alpha Phi Alpha supported legal battles against segregation. Some of its members, who were trial lawyers, argued many of the nation's major court cases involving civil rights and civil liberties. The case Murray versus Pearson was initiated by the fraternity and successfully argued by Alpha men Thurgood Marshall and Charles Houston to challenge biases at the universities, which had no laws requiring segregation in its colleges. The fraternity assisted in a similar case that involved fraternity brother Lloyd Gaines. In Gaines versus Canada, the most important segregation case since Plessy versus Ferguson, Gaines was denied admission to the law school at the University of Missouri because he was Black. Alpha men Houston and Sidney Redmond successfully argued states that provide only one educational institution must allow Blacks and whites to attend if there's no separate institution for Blacks. Many members of Alpha Phi Alpha have led the way in the fight against sickle cell anemia, respiratory and cardiovascular illnesses that has plagued the country and the African American community specifically for hundreds of years. Diseases such as sickle cell, high blood pressure. Alpha Phi Alpha men has led the way, and I'm extremely proud to be a member of this great fraternity. And I believe that the spirit of Juneteenth is what created and established this amazing fraternity we call Alpha Phi Alpha, and we hope that you all have benefited from our services. With this, I hope you all have a continued blessed event, and I would like to thank you all for allowing me to participate. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brittany Pendleton, and I am the Connection Chairman for the Delta Psi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Although our chapter was not chartered until December 4th, 1948, our sorority has been at the forefront of social justice initiatives since its founding in 1908. For example, in 1938, we created the first congressional lobby on issues concerning housing, jobs, and anti-lynching. Our Connection Committee focuses on addressing societal concerns regarding the social, political, and economic status of African Americans. Today, we also continue to cultivate our relationship with the community through our 5 target programs. The first is HBCU for Life. We focus on education with an emphasis on historically Black colleges and universities. The second is Women's Health and Wellness, where we raise community awareness of critical health issues impacting African American women. The third is Building Your Economic Legacy, where we emphasize financial planning, asset accumulation, and wealth building, including savings, investments, managing debt, and improving credit. The fourth target is the arts, where we expose students to arts enrichment, and culture by focusing on visual and performing arts, and by showcasing talent through the exploration of writers, entertainers, and various other artists. Our fifth target is global impact, where we engage in programming designed to enhance the international footprint of the sorority with an emphasis on supporting refugees. We are extremely proud to say that the Vice President of these United States is our soror, Kamala Harris. We are also excited to continue to collaborate with the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP to celebrate Juneteenth in our community. We hope that you enjoyed the rich history and culture that this day represents. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Bradley, and I'm the polemarch or president of Kappa Alpha Psi Ann Arbor Ypsilanti Inkster Alumni Chapter. And today I'd just like to tell you about some of the things that we're doing within Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. First of all, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity was founded January 5th, 1911 on the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. During this time, Indiana had a strong presence of the Ku Klux Klan, and vigilante lynchings of Blacks were common. The percentage of Blacks on campus was less than 1%. And despite enduring a hostile environment on campus, Black students pursued a college education at IU because it was a tuition-free, high-quality education. Because of this environment, our founders felt a great need to create a fraternal organization for men with high Christian ideals. And the purpose of Kappa Alpha Psi is achievement, doing the very best in everything that we do. Our founders were God-fearing and serious-minded young men who possessed the imagination, ambition, courage, and determination to defy custom in pursuit of education and a career. Many aspects of our fraternity's rites are ingrained in Christianity ideals and contain excerpts from the Bible. Our local chapter, the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti Inkster chapter, was formed on December the 6th, 1958, and our objectives are the same as our original founders: to achieve in everything we do and to support our communities. Now I'd like to tell you about just a highlight of some of the activities that we're engaged with in our community. In normal times, we host a Women of Achievement event that honors 5 leaders in their profession as well as their community. For example, Linda Cash, who was only the second African-American in over 100 years to become an officer, a female officer at Ford Motor Company. She also led the Ford African American Resource Group, which we call FAN, whose main objective is to mentor and help facilitate career progression among African Americans. Annually, the Kappa Foundation, which is our philanthropic arm, awards scholarships to local students who possess the intellectual capital, but need support with financial capital. This year, in fact, this Saturday, we will award 17 students with a $1,000 scholarship to support their college experience. We have financial and working relation partnerships with Black Man Read, the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County, SOS Family Services, the Smithsonian Museum, and others. We're also developing future leaders of the world through our Kappa League, which is a leadership and development program for high school students. This year, we have 30 young men in our program. Some of the key highlights of our program that we focus on are self-identity, social and health education, financial literacy, and college prep. One of our key events for the year, which I'm very proud of, was a fundraising event that resulted in making a $4,000 donation to Black Man Read to facilitate reading comprehension among our kids in our community. We also work with the NAACP, and we support their Juneteenth events. And we've also supported their voter calling banks to support voter registration. And previously, we have also supported prior MLK Day events. When I think of Juneteenth, Juneteenth marks the day when the federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. The unfortunate part of this is that the troops' arrival came about 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. As African Americans, we need to know our history. More importantly, we need to share our history with our kids and the next generation so that they know. For example, our ancestors in Africa were kings and queens. The Garden of Eden is in Africa. The University of Timbuktu boasted about 25,000 students and was one of the largest universities during the medieval period. Our history didn't just begin with our ancestors being brought to this country. When you know that our ancestors were kings and queens, built wonders of the world, such as the Great Pyramids, it should give us great enthusiasm and great drive to strive to mimic our ancestors and what they did in Africa, in this land that we live in today. And that's just a quick summary of the events of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti Inkster chapter. And I thank you for this opportunity.
My name is Delphia Simpson, and I am the Legal Redress Committee Chair for the Ann Arbor Branch NAACP. I am so honored to be speaking with you on the first Juneteenth as a legal holiday in Ann Arbor. The Legal Redress Committee is responsible for addressing all discrimination and civil rights complaints reported to the branch. What is unique about the Ann Arbor Branch Legal Redress Committee is that all of the committee members are licensed attorneys. In addition to investigating complaints, the committee also works alongside the branch president to partner with community organizations to address social justice issues. One partnership that I'm very proud of is with my own sorority, the women of the Ann Arbor Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I encourage you to report any issues of concerns of discrimination or civil rights violation to our branch for our committee to investigate. I also hope you consider joining the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP to move forward the efforts for criminal and social justice reform. Please enjoy yourself today as we celebrate our ancestors and as we work towards true freedom. Thank you.
My name is Corey Esley, and I'm a member of the Sigma Rho chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I am also an NAACP committee chairman and a member of the Ann Arbor branch of the NAACP. Today, I would like to talk about Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, some of the projects and programs that we provide, and about the long historical relationship of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity and the NAACP. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded on November 17, 1911, on the campus of Howard University. Omega Psi Phi is the first Black fraternity to be founded on the campus of a historically Black college or university. Our honorable founders were Professor Frank Coleman, Dr. Oscar James Cooper, Bishop Edgar Amos Love, and Dr. Ernest Everett Just. Our motto is friendship is essential to the soul, and our fraternity is guided by our 4 cardinal principles, which are manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. The Sigma Rho chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded on December 12, 1964, and chartered a week later on December 19, 1964. Since our charter, Sigma Rho has served the Ann Arbor area, Ypsilanti, and greater Washtenaw County area in a variety of ways. Our programs, which are organized under our 10 mandated programs, were established by our founders to be the biggest impact on our community. Some examples of our programs include, but are not limited to, scholarships for undergraduates, social action programs like the Assault on Illiteracy, youth mentoring, shopping with the Qs, and voter registration. We also have a talent hub program that provides scholarship for young people who are interested in the performing arts. And we also sponsor and coordinate programs that promote good health practices like our Charles H. Drew Blood Drive and our annual 5K run or walk event where we raise funds for the American Diabetes Association. Another one of our programs is our voter registration, education, and mobilization initiative, where we concentrate on educating the public on the importance of taking part of our political process. And we also create avenues for them to do so. On the national level, every year we donate $50,000 to historically Black colleges and universities through our College Endowment Fund to further our objective of being philanthropic, as well as to continue to support students in their quest for greater educational opportunities. But the initiative that is near and dear to my heart is our NAACP mandate. Our NAACP mandated program was created because of our founders' belief in the importance of the NAACP's mission. In fact, every chapter in Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is required to not only maintain a lifetime membership with the NAACP, but every member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is encouraged to maintain a membership as well. Furthermore, the NAACP and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated have not only been on the front line of the civil rights movement since their inception, but they have a long and strategic relationship dating back almost 110 years. As a matter of fact, back in 1915, the first Spring Iron Medal, which is the NAACP's most prestigious medal, was awarded to one of our founders, Dr. Ernest Everett Just. A year later, in 1916, Colonel Charles Young, who is another Omega man, was awarded the medal as well. And in the years that followed, several other Omega men were awarded this prestigious award, including Carter G. Woodson, Charles Drew, and Langston Hughes, just to name a few. We have even had Omega men hold the position of executive director of the NAACP, including its current director, Brother Derek Johnson. Here in the Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area, over the last 56 years, our chapter has maintained a strong relationship with the NAACP, and we have partnered on a variety of programs and events, and it is our goal to continue to do so. This month, on June 19th, 2021, we will stand in lockstep with the NAACP during its Juneteenth celebration as we take part in its Emancipation Doesn't Equal Freedom March, where we will highlight racial inequities, police brutality, and the nationwide assault on our voting rights. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is proud to be in this fight with the NAACP, and we will continue to fight with them for the next 100 years as well. Thank you.
Hello, my friends. This is William Hampton from the NAACP. And I hope that everybody enjoyed our 27th annual NAACP Juneteenth celebration. Our members, along with our collaborators, were committed to the creation of an educational experience for all of us. The NAACP has been in business of creating more diversity and more inclusion here in America since 1909. In fact, February 12, 1909. And this diversity and inclusion is for all of us. Our Ann Arbor branch was originally chartered 40 years after the original founding of the National, which was February 12, 1949. A recent report revealed that 77% of all Americans, let me say that twice. The report revealed that 77% of all Americans felt as if our democracy was at risk. It is our goal, the goal of the NAACP, and we are committed to reducing this number. We believe that the best pathway towards this goal is through collaboration. In our judgment, collaboration for the continued success for our democracy is a much better goal than competition. We believe that working together, we can make this world a better place. Today's celebration from our perspective, was yet another example of that, of us taking a step in that direction. So I believe that many more steps are required. We believe that we are qualified to do that. And we believe that at the end of the day, we will have success. So let me leave you with, thank you so much for joining us. Please stay safe and have a wonderful day.